give you the markets update now. The local bourse will be contending with continued global risk aversion in early trade, with the global markets trading lower as investors consider the growing risks posed by the COVID-19 in China and the central bank policy. Zwelakhe Mnguni, Chief Investment Officer at Benguela Global Fund Managers, joining us now to talk us through the latest market developments. Mr. Mnguni, thank you very much for your time. A sense, therefore, on how the markets have opened this morning after closing almost 3% flat in the last session.
Yeah, thank you. I think our markets is a bit down this morning and in line with what we are seeing in markets in Asia. So the selling pressure continues. Looks like the negative sentiment is growing across global markets. I think there are concerns that the risks for a global recession have become elevated, and I think there are a number of factors that are contributing to that. One is the rising energy crisis. I mean, the G7 has announced that they will be kicking Russian oil sales out of their market, so that would push oil prices higher. That would feed into inflation, and that would reinforce the central bank's need to raise rates. And that would also put a further brakes on the global economy. But lastly, I think the Chinese economy came out with numbers that were below expectations, particularly on the import side, due to the COVID lockdown. So I think that the risks are very high, and the market is taking that into account as we move along.
Yeah, you talk about the central bank's policy, the Reserve Bank here, for some people who may not know. Let's talk about that central bank's April's gross and net foreign reserves data. Is there likely to be an increase in your view?
Yeah, what they basically showed is that they have increased their reserves more in the foreign currency component and less so in gold. I think in the foreign currency component, they're up about 12.5% month on month. So for the month of April versus month of March. And on a year-on-year basis, they increased the reserves by 23%. So quite a strong increase in reserves. And I think on the other side, on the gold side, they increased that by 8% month on month and 19% year on year. So they continue to build some defenses in the reserves to be able to defend the currency where necessary, because one of their mandates is to keep the currency stability or support currency stability over and above, because that fits into inflation.
Let's talk about some markets now, or rather company news, starting with AngloGold Ashanti. It's published the first quarter market update report. Talk us through how their numbers are looking.
Yeah, I mean, their production was down quarter on quarter, but in line on a year-on-year basis. So they produce about 590 ounces of gold, and they received a slightly better price in the last quarter versus the prior quarters. And their EBITDA was down, however, to about 438, but their free cash flows were up strongly. I think what was a bit disappointing, at least from a market perspective, was that their guidance for costs on a forward-looking basis was up quite meaningfully. So they expecting to produce gold at about 1,300 to 1,400 an ounce, versus what they did now, about 1,280, and that was up on 1,100 last year. So it looks like the costs are rising, and the concern from the market point of view is that if production is falling, even if the price is going higher, there could be a risk that their profitability would be affected.
Yeah, let's conclude the conversation with Disney, which is set for a fight with Netflix in South Africa, as you would have heard. It plans to launch its video streaming service later this month. What kind of video streaming service environment are they likely to walk into in South Africa?
Yeah, I think one of the most significant things that has happened over the last 10 years is that our internet connectivity, the speeds and the penetration has gone up significantly, and that has enabled players in outside markets to come and play in South Africa. So I think Netflix has had a head start in South Africa, and globally they're probably the biggest video streaming player. But Disney is challenging that. We saw that in the last quarter, they had about 11 million new subscribers, while Disney struggled, while Netflix struggled. So they come into the market to challenge Netflix, and I think Netflix has made some mistakes also on pricing, that they did push pricing a bit aggressively, and I think that creates an opportunity for peers to come in and basically take them on. So I think it's going to be very interesting in the next few months.
Zwelakhe Mnguni, thank you very much for that market update. He is the Chief Investment Officer at Benguela Global Fund Managers.